Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Elizabeth Weinberg. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. Today, we're talking about how 1 + 1 = 3 in all relationships. Okay, so just stick with me while I explain this and get through this a little bit. But first, I want to say, like usual, whenever I'm talking about relationships, I'm talking about platonic and romantic relationships. Okay, so sometimes we're all conditioned into thinking relationship just means romantic. But of course, I'm talking about platonic relationships here too. So think about any situation where this comes up for you, not just romantic. However, most of us tend to get triggered and have to do a lot of healing work and checking ourselves in romantic relationships more than some of our platonic relationships. But again, it's a reminder that this is about, platonic and romantic relationships. Okay. So first, 1 + 1 = 3. What does that mean? So we have one person and one person in a relationship, and we have that person's energy and this person's energy. And then we have 3, the third energy, which is like the two energies connecting. So you can think of it like a Venn diagram, right? So 2 separate whole people are in a relationship, again, platonic or romantic. And then in the middle is the energy that you all have, the new energy you create, the energy of the relationship. So this is like, you are a whole individual person on your own, and then anyone you're in relationship with is a whole individual person on their own, and then together you have a dynamic between the two of you that makes up the third energy. So 1 + 1 = 3, as we're talking about it from an energetic standpoint and from a place of that when we enter into relationships, we have to do our own work and be aware of how we're showing up into that shared energy dynamic. Okay, so this basically means that other people loving us, so again, romantically, platonically, or both, some good romantic relationships have some friendship in there too. But us having that dynamic doesn't excuse us from learning or, mean that we suddenly don't have to do anything to continue to be healthier, to do our own inner work, to be accountable for ourselves, to unlearn healthy patterns, right? So we still have to do all that work to be better, to be more healthy, to be more rational, be more calm, be less reactive, less argumentative. We have to grow still, and we have to learn how to be healthier in the present moment and also be responsible for ourselves so we can help heal some of our past wounding and things that have been going on. So we have to have practice managing like our uncomfortable and unpleasant feelings, right? Just because you have like a best friend that you like, or a partner, or, a family relationship, right? That we want to escape into, be very codependent with. Okay, no judgment in there, but just because we have that doesn't excuse us from any of the work we have to do within ourselves in order to continue to grow and change and become healthier. And so, just finding like someone who clicks for you, feels good for you, doesn't excuse you from continuing to be healthier and work on yourself and be a better person. So like I was saying, like there's your energy to be in charge of by itself, right? And then there's your energy to be in charge of when you're in the dynamic with the person. Okay, so it's kind of like we have to think about those two things. And obviously you're not in charge of the other person's energy. You're not in charge of making them happy, of making them feel a certain way. You are responsible for the self that does show up in relationship with them. You're not responsible for their energy on your own. Okay, so let's say one example of how this can show up is, let's say you had a really bad day, you're really burnt out, you're feeling upset. Like this is your energy is just off. You just had one of those days, right? Maybe you're really triggered about something, maybe you're going through a hard time, right? And then so you bring all of that energy into this dynamic without being responsible for yourself, checking yourself, getting clear, just saying like, does this go where it needs to go? And you show up and that person is trying to just connect with you, play with you, laugh with you, talk to you, whatever. And you show up and you're bickering, you're fighting, you're just like in a bad mood. Nothing they say will click or feel good, or like you're just short with them no matter what they do, right? You lash out at them. Okay, that's you not being in charge of yourself and kind of not being responsible for the ways you use that energy to show up in this space. So of course, I never condone spiritual bypassing. So I'm not talking about pretending like you don't feel that, but there is a difference between feeling upset and having a bad day and going to this shared energy, the part 3 of the, 1 + 1 + 3 = 3, having that energy and then being like, I'm going through a hard time today. Can you listen to me talk about something? Or this is the way I need support, or, whatever, instead of like being conscious enough to recognize that and own that energy instead of just being like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Just being in a bad mood and taking it out on the other person, right? So that's one way this can show up if you don't do your work with like your own energy. And then another way this can show up is, let's say you have that dynamic already. So you're still in that place of like an old wound came up, or you're just having a bad day or going through a hard time, whatever. And you get in this dynamic and that's really present for you. And so you bring that energy. And this is like when that person and you are already trying to like work through a conflict. So you're already trying to work through something. And so there's that added layer of like miscommunication or whatever's gone on. And then you're showing up again in this way that's, just kind of not super grounded in yourself, not clear, not grounded, not like, okay, this is my stuff to work on and to not lash out in this space. I need to have a healthier outlet with it. And so then the argument just gets more intense and more like you can't find each other in it because you have all this, like you're just speaking from a wounded place instead of being present and connecting with that person. So again, it's up to us to be in charge of our own energy and then bring that calm and centered energy to this like third energy that's created in the relationship. So again, remembering the other person is not responsible for our happiness. Like no one can do our work for us. But hello, relationships are amazing. It's like with healthy people, that's part of what we crave as human beings, is having a healthy, loving connection with someone else. So I definitely don't buy into like, the narrative that, we don't need anyone, we're above this, we're above that, whatever, right? Like we are an interconnected species. There's a reason why we like connecting with other people. Relationships are to add to us, to give us joy, growth, peace, compassion, whatever, whatever, all of those things reflected back to us, right? But so I'm not saying that you should not be in any relationship because they're great. It's part of the human experience. It's wonderful with healthy people. It's really great. But using them as an escape or using them as an excuse to not work on yourself, using them as a place to just dump all this energy you have, or instead of sitting with your own stuff, you project it onto the people in your life or one person. I don't know, maybe there's a relationship or two that gets a little bit more of your stuff than other ones, which again, no judgment, right? That's just what we're all conditioned into. But so knowing that, you being responsible for yourself means that you are also responsible, like in terms of not projecting and just spewing all whatever's going on inside of you around you to anyone who's like going to be in the, the splash zone of whatever's going on for you. And then I do want to say you can go through conflict like this, right? So some of us hear the word conflict and we're like, oh, I don't want conflict, whatever. And so I'm talking about healthy conflict here. So healthy conflict is when you and someone who you're in a relationship with, again, platonic or romantic, have a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, or trying to understand each other more. Very, very normal. Okay. Very, very, if you are two independent people with your own thoughts, ideas, beliefs, experiences, there's going to be a time where you have a conflict. Okay. So conflict is inevitable, and healthy conflict is actually amazing and can connect us to people in our lives in a way that's deeper than before. But unhealthy conflict, right? So unhealthy conflict that we see that's very, very common in our society is yelling, screaming, breaking things, like, threatening someone else, right? Just like this, like intense, those are people who are not in control of their energy, right? Those are people who are can't be present, can't use conflict as closeness, just kind of become like a tornado person whenever they get triggered and just spew and project stuff everywhere, right? So, but when you go through conflict in this 1 + 1 = 3 energy, it's again remembering that like I need to stay in my center and be clear in myself and be consciously aware of what my triggers are. Or I know, for example, like let's say if your partner isn't like verbally giving you feedback, you kind of shut down and you're like, why aren't you talking to me? So communicating that with them, right? So part of this third energy is knowing yourself so that you can bring that energy to this dynamic, and so that this conflict can be as smooth as possible, right? So much of 1 + 1 = 3 energy is about knowing yourself, knowing your wounding, knowing your triggers, knowing where you've been, and just being responsible for yourself and accountable and being mindful and like practicing this like managing of our own feelings so we don't spew it and project it onto these relationships. That can be really great grounds for us to know ourselves, know more depths about each other, the other person and ourselves, right? One really amazing thing about relationships is they help us learn things that we wouldn't learn just by ourselves. We learn so much in relationship with other people. And so again, like when you go through conflict with this other person, it's not immediately this scream, I'm going to yell, I'm going to throw this thing, we're going to fight, we're not going to find an answer, we're not going to whatever, right? 1 + 1 = 3. Healthy energy is like, okay, hey, just want to let you know, these are what my triggers are. This is what might be coming up for me. This is an old wound I have, right? Saying those boundaries, setting the boundaries. Maybe you need some time apart to figure this out, right? Instead of just like, please affirm me right now that this is everything I need and it's going to be okay, right? It doesn't last long term. It's not healthy. That's expecting the other person to do something for you that you are, as an adult and as someone who does need to be responsible for themselves, not spewing your stuff everywhere on everyone just because you feel uncomfortable. And so that's, again, your part of it is to like find your center, find your calm, and bring that energy to your relationships instead of just showing up as like this tornado person that just like explodes and, throws your energy all over everywhere, expects everyone else to just deal with you, which is like, you wouldn't want to deal with someone like that. So what do you expect, right? And so this is, again, 1 + 1 = 3 is just about knowing that you're responsible for yourself and you're responsible for yourself in this dynamic. And it's about making sure, like, that the middle of the Venn diagram is this like loving, healthy, safe place. And that can only happen if you and the other person are being responsible for your energy. So I'm just going to say this for the 8 millionth time on this channel, but you cannot do enough work to overcompensate for someone who does not want to do their own work. Okay, so if this person doesn't want to be healthy, doesn't want to look at their triggers, doesn't want to be accountable for themselves, doesn't want to be honest, right? You cannot do enough of that yourself to make up for whatever they are not doing. So this is why it's really important to choose relationships, romantic and platonic, again, with people who are on the same level of commitment to self, of growing, of changing, of, just being responsible for yourself, taking personal responsibility. You want to choose people like that. So when you do come together, it's like this healthy cocoon of energy that's created of getting to know each other instead of just like this excuses, this insane, this like, I can't be with you, or like this lashing out or ghosting, or, just people just not recognizing their own triggers in a way that doesn't help the relationship, because there's like so much damage control and you just feel crazy and you don't feel closer to the other person. Okay, and then the last thing I want to say about this too is you're not going to be perfect when you do this. Okay, none of us are, no matter how much we want to say, I'm conscious, I'm aware, this is what's going on, right? It's the humans. As a human soul, we never outgrow the human experience, no matter how much work we've done on ourselves, how much we know about ourselves, how much any and all of that, right? So don't beat yourself up if you aren't this perfectly centered, beautiful angel of like, I'm here to be the grounded energy in this, right? We're all going to go through times where we can't do that 100% the best of our ability. Don't judge yourself. Just try to let it go. Just show up the best you can. Forgive yourself. Communicate. Own if you didn't act in a way that was your highest self, like, and then just try to bring some awareness around it and move forward. Because again, healthy relationships are about being accountable for the self, being responsible for the self, and just kind of like owning when we don't get it perfectly, because we're all human. We're not perfect. We're not going to get everything perfectly. Okay, that's everything I have for you. I hope this served you. If you ever want any more information about me, all of that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.